Hello guys, welcome back to the channel and to another video where today we are going to be reacting to my 2024-25 Northern Premier League West Division predictions. Last year I got 0 correct, so honestly, if we can even get 1, I'll be impressed. Let's start as we mean to go on. First one right. Here we go. The Motormen had an impressive first season back in the Northern Premier League last season, finishing comfortably in 16th, 12 points above the drop. However, I don't think they'll be as fortunate this time around, and I can see them being relegated back down to Step 5. You've got to be kidding me. 17 places wrong. I know it's not an excuse, but in fairness, a lot of people predicted Vauxhall Motors to do poorly last season. Come on though, what was I thinking? Bottom of the league. They finished 5th. Right, let's move on. Hopefully we'll redeem ourselves with the next one. Hanley Town have flattered to deceive since their promotion to the Northern Premier League West in 21-22 with 16th and 13th place finishes. The addition of veteran striker Tom Pope from Whitton Albion is a smart signing, but will his goals be enough to keep Hanley in the division? Personally, I don't think so, but time will tell. Okay, there we go. We actually got one right. So I'm already doing better than last year. This one wasn't a difficult call though, as a lot of people did tip Hanley to go down, given they'd been punching above their weight in this division for a few years. I just don't think anyone expected it to be quite as bad as it was for them. They ended up going down with a whimper, finishing 25 points from safety, with the season falling off a cliff in October when both manager Ryan Shotton and their main goal scorer Tom Pope both left the club. I've predicted Newcastle Town to struggle in each of their last 2 seasons, and while they've hardly pulled up any trees, they've been comfortably lower mid-table. With the strength of the league this season, however, and the potential for 4 teams to be relegated, I think Newcastle will spend the majority of the season looking over their shoulders, and I can see them slipping into the bottom 4 late on. I think I've predicted Newcastle Town to be relegated every season since I started doing these predictions, and each year they proved me wrong. They ended up being 4 points and 3 places above the drop zone, so it's not like they pulled up any trees, but still. Another year in what is a really competitive league can only be seen as a positive. A team that's usually in the running for playoffs, Trafford really struggled last season, and if it wasn't for Carl Marginson coming in to steady the ship, they would have likely been relegated. If their budget is as small as it was last time out, I can see them finding it difficult to attract the right names and struggling to compete. I really felt like I was onto something here with Trafford, considering they'd struggled the season prior with one of, if not the lowest budgets in the league, but full credit goes to Carl Marginson. He had Trafford flirting with the playoffs for a large portion of the season, ending in a very respectable 9th. I don't want to be too dramatic, but Whitton Albion have just sacked their manager John Mackin just over a week before the start of the season, and currently have just 16 players signed on for the new campaign. They've also just lost 6-1 at home to 1874 Northwich in a pre-season friendly. While you can't read too much into it, it's far from a good omen, considering 1874 were relegated last season with just 18 points. I think Albion could potentially be on the verge of a catastrophic season, but crucially, I think they'll do just enough to survive the drop. This is so frustrating, as pretty much everything I said was spot on, except for the position. If Whitton Albion had got just 5 less points, I'd have been off to a flyer here. A difficult team to judge as one of the 3 promoted and 2 Wythenshawe teams in the league this season. It's rare that teams coming up from Step 5 go straight back down, but I don't think it'll be the easiest season for Wythenshawe Town, but crucially, I think they'll just about avoid relegation. I didn't expect Wythenshawe Town to have a great season, so for them to underperform even my very low expectations says a lot. They've been horrendously mismanaged off the pitch this season, even being suspended by the league for failing to comply with financial fair play rules back in November, so they can count themselves extremely lucky to have gotten a reprieve after finishing in the final relegation spot in 19th. If their off-season woes continue into next season, I can see it being a rock-bottom finish for Wythenshawe Town.
Another one that's difficult to judge, the Bears tore apart in the Midland Premier Division last season. However, as we know, Step 4 is a big step up in quality, so this season will likely be a tough test for Congleton. Survival will be the main aim, and I think that's what they'll achieve.
This one is contender for the worst prediction in the whole list. Mind you though, there are some absolutely horrible ones coming up. But what a season Congleton Town have had. Seriously, the job Richard Duffy has done this season is incredible. To take a team from Step 5 and finish third before reaching a playoff final is an unbelievable achievement. I don't think this is going to be a fluke either, as I can see the Bears pushing on again next season in the hunt for promotion to Step 3.
Kidsgrove were a bizarre case last season. After winning their first 7 games, they completely fell off a cliff and were in real danger of relegation by the end of the campaign. I don't think things will be that dramatic this season for Kidsgrove. However, I think last season's turmoil will have taken its toll and a season of consolidation is on the cards.
I feel a bit sorry for Kidsgrove Athletic, as they've got a great fan base that deserves a lot more than they're getting on the pitch. They've just about scraped survival, finishing one place above the relegation zone in each of the last 2 seasons. Hopefully they can challenge a bit higher up the league next season, well away from any relegation danger, under the managerial duo and shithouse strike partnership of Matt Reid and Tom Pope.
Atherton had been struggling in the Northern Premier League Premier Division for a number of years before they were eventually relegated last season. They'll want to bounce straight back up, but I don't think things will be that simple. We've seen countless examples of teams dropping down into this league and struggling, and I think it'll be the same story for Coles this campaign.
Right, I know this one's still wrong by 1 place, but I'm absolutely buzzing with this prediction. So many will have seen Atherton Collieries come down into the division and automatically assume they'll bounce straight back up. It really wasn't that simple for the Coles though, who struggled early on in the season, spending a significant spell in and around the relegation zone. However, a manager with the experience of Michael Clegg wasn't going to let his team fall away that easily, and eventually the Coles started to pick up results and went on a good run of form in the back half of the season to secure a spot in lower mid-table. If they can carry that end of season form into next season, then who knows where they'll finish.
The Dabbers finished last season in 10th, and honestly, nothing has convinced me they'll do much better this time around. A solid mid-table finish for me.
Nantwich Town are one of those sides I really underestimated this season. Having finished 10th the season prior, I just assumed they'd fall away into mid-table obscurity. But at times last season, they looked almost dead certain for a playoff spot. It was only really inconsistency and some poor results towards the end of the season that saw them slip down to 8th, missing out on a playoff spot by just 11 points.
I got a lot of stick for my Mosley prediction last season after I said they'd finish 11th. They ended up finishing 15th, so if anything, I think I overestimated them. I've seen a few people tip the Lily-Whites to bounce back this season with a playoff finish, but I just can't see it myself. Still though, I think there'll be some improvement from last season, so 12th seems about right.
Again, I'm pretty happy with this prediction. After a poor season in 2023-24, where they finished 15th, I just had a feeling Mosley would struggle to bounce back to their usual playoff challenging ways, and I was almost spot on.
Widnes really impressed me last time out, pushing all the way to the last few weeks of the season to try and get a playoff spot. While they've impressed in pre-season though, I think the league is far too competitive to see them realistically mount another playoff charge.
Yep, I'll hold my hands up on this one. Another absolute shocker. But let's be real, who actually saw Widnes winning the league? I know they'd done well finishing 9th the season before, but I don't even think the most optimistic Widnes fan could have seen this coming. If I wanted to be bitter, I could sit here and go on about their soulless rugby league stadium and poor attendances, but those would be cheap shots. If I really wanted to pick them apart, I'd mention the over £100,000 yearly losses they're posting and over £450,000 in shareholder loans they owe, but still. It was worth potentially gambling the solvency of the club on promotion, right? Anyway, Michael Ellison did a great job in charge. He'll keep you up next season, won't he? Oh, right. That's awkward. Good luck at step 3, guys. Just be careful what you wish for.
I've heard a few people tip Chasetown for a strong showing this season, and keeping hold of club legend Jack Langston will be important for the Scholars, but personally, I don't see them pushing any higher than mid-table.
This one doesn't look as bad as some of the others on paper, but I really underestimated Chase Town this season. The knack of grinding out wins in tight games all season, a lot of 3-2s and 2-1s, rightfully earned them a spot in 4th. They're a really solid team, and I don't think I'll make the same mistake in underestimating them next season.
As I mentioned in my Atherton prediction earlier, we've seen countless teams come down from the Northern Premier League Premier Division and struggle. Stalybridge Celtic and Nantwich Town both found themselves in mid-table last season, with Witton Albion failing to bounce straight back up the season before last, and I think it'll be a similar story for Stafford Rangers. They've had a wretched pre-season, and from what I can see online, their fans aren't optimistic for the season ahead. 9th place for me.
Like the Atherton Collieries prediction, the same pretty much rings true for Stafford Rangers this year. I don't think many assumed they'd go straight back up, but I think few expected them to struggle as much as they did for large parts of the year. Like with Coles, they were in and around the relegation zone until a late surge in form saw them propel themselves away from danger and into mid-table.
This one might come as a shock, but I really think Runcorn Linnets will struggle this season in comparison to seasons gone by. Losing out in the playoffs 2 seasons in a row will surely knock the confidence of fear in their dressing room, and handing the managerial job to a relative novice in the form of Anthony Kay, who was part of that playoff heartbreak as a player last season for Linnets, just doesn't sit right with me. With all that in mind, I think Linnets could be in for a tough time of it this year.
I feel sort of vindicated with this one. A lot of people were confident in Linnets to secure a 4th successive playoff finish, but I thought all that hard work, only to end in disappointment, had to take its toll eventually. And I wasn't wrong. I think on reflection, Linnets fans will probably admit that giving the job to Anthony Kay, an inexperienced manager who, despite having a great career as a player, had still been part of that playoff disappointment the season before, probably wasn't the appointment they needed to get them over the line. Whilst this season will have no doubt been a disappointment to the Linnets faithful, I don't think there's much to read into it other than it just being a blip. And given the signings they've made ahead of pre-season, I can easily foresee the Yellows regaining their place in the playoffs next season.
Similar to Runcorn Linnets, losing in the playoff final will be a huge blow for the Cole squad, which could go one of 2 ways. But couple it with the upheaval surrounding the ground sharing agreement, and I think the Perps are set for a disappointing campaign relative to last time out.
Yeah, this is probably the worst one in the list. City of Liverpool were an absolute shambles from start to finish this season. I don't even think it's the players' fault either. Unfortunately, they've just been completely and utterly dismantled from the inside out, thanks to the ego of one man. To undo all of the hard work and progress from the season before, seemingly overnight, is insane. The decision to sack Paul McNally, who only the season prior had guided the Perps from the relegation zone to a 5th place finish and a playoff final just 13 games into the season, was a disgrace. To then replace him with Kevin Lynch, who lasted just 8 games in charge, losing every single one, all the while alienating the fans in the process, was unforgivable. To put things into perspective, they finished the season 10 points worse off than Hanley Town, and we already know how bad they were this season. By February, the squad had been absolutely decimated, paving the way for 8-2 and 8-0 hammerings at home to Nantwich Town and Stafford Rangers respectively. By the time they turned up to Shawbridge in April, they could just about cobble together a starting 11, not even having enough players to name a substitutes bench. A real sorry state of affairs that by all accounts was completely avoidable. I genuinely feel sorry for any fans that still haven't turned their back on the club, as with Paul Manning in charge, things are only looking one way for the Perps next season, and it isn't up.
Stalybridge Celtic had a great start to the season last time out, seemingly occupying a spot in the playoffs for virtually the entire campaign until they fell away out of nowhere and ended the season in 12th. I could see them carrying that end of season form into the start of the new campaign, however, I think they have enough talent in their squad to mount some level of a playoff charge.
It's taken a whole 15 places, but I've finally got another one right. To be honest though, there isn't really too much to say about this one, as we've pretty much seen this exact same script play out before for Stalybridge Celtic the season before last, where inconsistent results meant they couldn't quite do enough to get over the line into the playoffs and ended up finishing just outside in 6th. James Kinsey getting sacked in October, despite the Celts sitting in 4th, just 4 points off the top of the table at the time, seemed like an odd decision. However, his replacement, John Mackin, is a good manager at this level, and I'd quite like to see what he could do given a full season in charge.
Bootle were another team that really impressed me last season after they managed to get into the playoffs, and I wouldn't be surprised if they went and did the same again this season. All the foundations are there. They've got a good manager in Mick McGrath, boasts a strong squad and are backed well, both in the boardroom and on the terraces. I think they've got enough to go again and take the first playoff spot in 5th.
I don't think anybody would have really batted an eyelid if Bootle had got into the playoffs again last season, but they stalled big time, finishing way below expectations in 14th. I really rated Mick McGrath as a manager as well, given the work he'd done to get the Bucks into the playoffs the season prior, but ultimately it is a results-driven business, and with Bootle sat 16th in the table, just 4 points above the relegation zone at the time of Mick's departure, it was clear a change was needed. Looking ahead to next season, as I always say, Bootle have the right infrastructure to do well in this league, and I'm sure they'll bounce back as they've got another good manager in Alan Morgan, so yeah, I'm sure they'll do just fine.
Probably the surprise package of last season, Avro were really unlucky in the end not to reach the playoffs in their first ever season at Step 4. The signings they've made during pre-season, including veteran centre-forward Mike Phoenix, suggest this isn't just going to be a flash in the pan though, and they intend to push on even further this campaign. I'm backing them to do really well again and secure a spot in the playoffs.
I was expecting big things last season, and they just fell short of the playoffs, finishing 7th. Clearly the club had high expectations as well, with joint managers David Birch and Michael Norton departing in April, with goalkeeper Grant Shenton stepping up to take the helm for next season. It's a bit of a risky appointment given it's his first job in senior management, and it could go either way, but if the last 2 seasons are anything to go by, I'm sure Avro will be a strong side again next year.
Momentum is something that cannot be underestimated in football, and Wythenshawe FC have it in droves. After securing back-to-back promotions last season, I suspect the Ammies will look to carry that form into their first ever season in the Northern Premier League, with a playoff finish well within the realms of possibility. It's no secret that they're well backed financially, with entrepreneur/politician Sacha Lord heading up the board, meaning they'll likely have no issue recruiting the right names to see them secure a spot at the top end of the league come the end of April.
I think looking at this now, I've got Vauxhall Motors and Wythenshawe mixed up, clearly, because if you swap the predictions round, I'm closer to getting them right. To cut myself a bit of slack, this was a bit of a shot in the dark, based on their chairman Sacha Lord having a load of money to spend, which from what I've heard, wasn't really the case. The whole fiasco with James Kinsey taking charge in January, only to resign after just 1 game and 5 days in the role, summed up their season, which saw them finish inside the relegation zone in 20th. Unfortunately, they haven't been as lucky as their crosstown rivals, who received a reprieve from relegation and will be playing their football in the Northwest Counties again next year, ironically, with, you guessed it, James Kinsey back in charge.
A lot of people will probably scoff at this prediction, considering Hednesford Town finished last season in 19th and were only spared from relegation thanks to a reprieve. But just hear me out. I don't think they're messing around this time. As of January this year, they have new owners who clearly aren't afraid to put money into the club, and that shows with their recruitment this summer. They've appointed Steve King as manager, who is the most successful manager in Conference South history, and the only manager in history to reach the playoffs in both the Conference North and Conference South. Add King's managerial pedigree to the raft of smart signings, including experienced former professionals like Jake Jervis, Dominic McHale and Omar Holness, as well as last season's top scorer and player of the season Rob Stevenson, signed from League Town, and the Pitmen have all the tools necessary for an unbelievable season. As I've predicted, I think that whoever finishes above Hednesford Town this season will win the league. But I think, crucially, one team is going to pip them to the title.
I can't believe it. I actually got this one spot on. Every man and his dog predicted Hensford to run away with the league, and if it wasn't for their early season inconsistency that saw Steve King sacked at the start of November, they probably would have done. An 8-1 win at home to Clitheroe, yes, I was there. Under new boss Gavin Hurren was the catalyst for their incredible run of form in the second half of the season. Despite missing out on the title by 4 points, going unbeaten in the final 7 games of the season meant that they had all of the momentum going into the playoffs. A 3-1 win against Vauxhall Motors before beating Congleton 2-0 in the final meant the Pitmen will be playing back at step 3 again next season. But, more importantly, I've got my third prediction correct.
I know, I can't help myself. I know that I'm biased with this prediction, but can you blame me? I know they've been dead rubbers in pre-season friendlies, but the football we've played under Jimmy Bell since he took over in April has been some of the best I've ever seen as a Clitheroe fan. We've also signed some top experienced talent in the form of Miles Story, Harry Brockbank and Accrington Stanley legend Sean McConville, as well as some bright young attacking prospects, namely Sajjad El Hassan and Javon Splatt. Retaining the bulk of last season's squad, with key players like Hakan Burton, Cameron Lancaster, Jacob Hansen, Richie Baker, Ross Dent and Danny Wilkins, all signed on for next season, amongst others, along with Louis Potts and Veron Parney being tied down to contracts, gives us a strong blend of youth, experience and most importantly, cohesion within the squad that we sorely lacked in seasons gone by. Jimmy Bell has stated numerous times in interviews with the club that he's coming in to win the league. And given his experience guiding Accrington Stanley through the leagues alongside John Coleman, I believe he can do the same with us and get us that promotion to the Northern Premier League Premier Division we as fans so desperately crave.
Right, here it is. The one you've all been waiting for. Cue the excuses in 3, 2, 1. I really believed this year was our year. All of the ingredients were there. We had the fan base, the infrastructure, the squad, the manager. Not a single soul questioned the appointment of Jimmy Bell before the season started. No one. The buzz around the club was honestly like nothing I'd ever experienced before. And then, as usual, we hit the self-destruct button. To be honest, we actually started the season pretty well, with big wins at home, but our away form was bad. So bad, in fact, we didn't win our first game away from home until November. A smash and grab 2-1 at Witton Albion. Injuries and inconsistent results started to pile up, not aided by fixture congestion, thanks to our impressive run to the first round of the FA Trophy. However, an 8-1 loss away at Hensford in November was where the season really started to unravel. By December, any hope we'd had of a successful season was in tatters, as we sat just outside the relegation zone. A 3-1 loss at home to Avro on the 3rd of December, followed by a 4-2 loss away at Congleton Town a week later, where we threw away a 2-0 lead, signalled the end of Jimmy Bell's tenure, with him stepping away from the role, citing internal factors as the primary reason for his departure. Sean McConville then stepped up from his coaching role to take the reins as first-team manager, going back to basics on the training ground, which translated into an immediate uptick in results on the pitch. While our form started to improve, however, the following month in January was when the situation off the pitch hit rock bottom. Chairman David Frost stepped down from his role on the 9th of January, and in the following days, the true fragile nature of the club's finances became apparent. Without going into too much detail, despite having the second highest average attendances in the league at over 750, there was a big black hole in our balance sheet that needed filling, or else we were in serious trouble. Thankfully, long-serving player and co-owner of successful fashion brand Capo, Danny Wilkins, was on hand to step in as chairman and steer the club away from a financial crisis. In the second half of the season, Sean McConville was able to completely turn our fortunes around on the pitch, which saw us consistently pick up points, both at Shawbridge and away from home. To say we finished the season on a higher points tally than the one before, comfortably safe from the relegation places, up in 10th, is testament to the job Sean McConville has done since he took charge. The inspired form of joint third top goalscorer Ron Parney and December arrival Leon Creech was certainly the difference going forward, and having them both on contracts for next season will be crucial to any success we may have. All in all, it's been a turbulent season of two halves following Clitheroe. But honestly, I don't think I'd have it any other way. If my record from the last few seasons is anything to go by though, I don't think I'll be predicting us to win the league anytime soon. Or will I? So guys, there you have it. That was my reaction to my 2024-25 Northern Premier League West Division predictions. How do you think I did? There were some shockers in there, but honestly, to even get one right after last year is a success in my eyes. If you happen to do your own predictions, let me know how you got on down in the comments. And while you're there, don't forget to leave a like on the video and of course subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss an upload. Thank you so much for watching today's video and I'll see you in the next one.